I want to pay digitally, right? Okay, let's figure that out after. So, my presentation is, BPC, maybe not that well known, but we are launching a new brand, Radar Payment. We'll talk about that later at the end of the presentation. My presentation is about providing you feedback or providing you a real-life example where potentially 100% digital use case is not fitting all the needs. And I will, we are defining ourselves as a global fintech globetrotters, and I will walk you through many examples of implementation we did. But first of all, let's take a look at the tech. Chris was saying that you need to understand tech, so let's take a look at the trends right now in the payment methods, payment means around tech. So one of the interesting trends currently are about the wearables, rings, bracelets. So paying with a ring, you're tapping your ring and then you can pay like NFC, pretty convenient when you're purchasing a coffee on a daily basis with your colleague. A new trend with the ring is actually Amazon launching an experimentation, a beta of a ring where you have a microphone and a speaker in the ring. So you can start ordering like a voice control device and you can start interacting with your ring. That's a new trend Amazon is experimenting right now, which I can use to say, hey, please transfer 20 euro to Chris Skinner for buying his new book. So this trend could be an interesting trend, but it's also limited use cases around this. Another trend at the top you can see is smartwatch. Well, slightly more, because they were used actually mostly to display messages or even paying, tapping with the smartwatch, but right now there is another layer of security where they are taking care of your finger vein patterns or continuous authentication because of your heartbeats detection directly on it. So this is an additional layer. That's not changed massively, but it has an additional layer of security. Beside the wearable, there is also very practical and, let's say, very simple wearables. This one is used in Orlando. It's the Volcano Park. Very simple. It was used at the beginning as a payment method where you can enjoy the park without having your card or cash to pay. But they start building up new use cases on top of this device. And then, for instance, you can check in on an attraction, you're going to the beach, you're enjoying yourself, waiting, and then when it's time to go back to the attraction, then you're getting an alert here on the bracelet. So this is not a fantastic use case, but it's also demonstrated that sometimes a payment method could be used and leveraged for more usage than what it was aimed for at the beginning. Another trend, biometrics. So, well, you all know about biometrics. So, but biometric cards, this is an interesting one because from a merchant perspective, there is no change in your infrastructure to accept biometric cards in your shops, for instance. This is compatible with POS terminals. Though there are significant challenges with biometric cards. The first one is they are very expensive. So one card, like the cost for one card as an issuer is $1, let's say, and for a biometric card is $20. So it's way more expensive and difficult to get the return on invest for issuers. The second problem is the enrollment process. It's a match-on card, so it means your fingerprint is stored on the card directly for security reasons. And this is, well, it can be perceived as a bit of a cumbersome process to get your fingerprints on the card. What's interesting here is this is an attempt as well from the card network to try to tackle the advantage that the smartphone manufacturers are having right now with the smartphone and the biometric sensors directly on the smartphone. So for Apple, for instance, the Touch ID or the Face ID, those are very interesting biometrics devices that, well, it cannot be leveraged easily by the issuing banks. So smart biometric cards are interesting, but yeah, well, they potentially have to solve some problem first. but it's a good attempt to like counter-attack potentially the advantage of the smartphone manufacturer. I'm bringing this one because maybe you guys are already having this smartphone in your pockets, but I was always wondering what are the different sensors at the top of the new iPhone. You've heard that the Face ID, face recognition capabilities of iPhone was pretty expensive to develop. And well, that was true. But it's pretty expensive because it's pretty techy. And actually, face recognition, you can feel that this is already in my life for ages, and it's simple. It's not. Face recognition, and especially the liveliness test, is not simple. And if you're looking at the new iPhone, there's 5 sensors at the top: the dot projector, front camera ambient light sensor, proximity and flood eliminator. Those sensors are only used for Face ID, and they are only on this model of iPhone. So it's not that straightforward to have reliable and secure Face ID like face recognition authentication mechanism. Why I bring this one as well, and it resonates a lot with Alipay and the presence in China. In 2020, the forecast is that this year there will be 750 million users paying with face recognition in China. Half of the population this year in China will use face recognition as an authentication mechanism to pay. Well, from my perspective, it's mind-blowing. But it highlighted as well that potentially, besides fingerprinting, face recognition is also taking advantage right now as a biometric and wider adoption. Well, China also started to issue regulation, which is not that strong enforcement regulation, but it's a self-regulation and guidelines on how to use biometrics for the tech giants, Alibaba or WeChat, and the Tencent there are having a large volume of biometrics information. Anyhow, this is also a tech trend to potentially to follow. The last one is IoT, Internet of Things, and the T of IoT are wearables. So what I was talking about with all the wearables, they are the T of IoT. But they're also way more than that. Smart houses, connected TVs, connected cars. Those are the things that are trending, but the voice, the Alexa and the Google Assistant are also devices that are, we will interact way more with this. But what's interesting here is also to start surveying people and see how are you comfortable to pay actually with voice-enabled devices. And you can see that, well, to order food, 45% of the surveyed people worldwide, not only in the US, also in Asia and Europe, 45% were perfectly comfortable to order their lunch paying with voice-enabled devices, like the Ring, for instance. But when it comes to order a flight or paying for your holidays, it dropped down to 15%. And it also shows here that even if you're bringing right technology with a lot of ease of use, well, potentially people are not that comfortable somehow in some use cases to pay with this type of device. And it's also, but well, I will talk about this one later. Some scholars, well, I know this is early, guys, so I will not spend too much time on this one, but some scholars theorized the technology adoption, well, technology acceptance model. What's interesting in that slide are 2 factors that are driving and converting an attitude of using it to an intention, to a behavior. Because you can really be like, okay, this is new, this is trendy, I will I will test it because I want to learn how to use it. It's not because I want to use then after that, it's just because I want to learn. And moving from this attitude of learning it to an intention, to a behavior of continuously using it. This is the crux in technology acceptance model. And what I will be talking about here is digital is definitely solving major challenges, but it also needs to be accepted. And I will provide you an example where, it was not really working for people. So, two drivers, ease of use and usefulness. You need to address these two drivers in order to have your technology accepted. So, let's start with examples. So, this one is Time Bank, South Africa. 100% digital bank. Brilliant. They were ramping up quickly, like a success story. What we did for them as BPC, we bring physical touch points in shops. And these physical touch points are kiosks where people can perform their KYC, well, the customer due diligence process. And from this touch point, they can also get and receive directly their debit cards. So they can enroll. They can also, when they are a customer, perform many different types of action, checking balance, paying, topping up, and so on. And they can also, this kiosk are also issuing directly a debit card after the process being realized online. They are leveraging South Africa ID, they are leveraging biometric information, and they are leveraging mobile network operator information. That is a 100% digital bank for which we had to bring touch points because we were not solving some of the problem, customer due diligence being one of the problems we were not solving. What's interesting here and what's happening in South Africa, it's also very much linked to Singapore, where a recent survey demonstrated that 99% of Singaporeans were saying that, well, I will keep my bank account even if I'm opening up a new bank account in the 100% digital bank. Okay. And in 60% of the case, they will say, well, I will still use as a primary account my bank account rather than using and switching entirely to the new digital bank account. So the main driver for this answers from Singaporean, they were saying that, yeah, well, you know, in some cases, emergency cases, health problem, insurance, mortgages, I want a physical contact. And this is one of the, Chris was mentioning about this, but this is not something that can be easily solved 100% digitally. This is sometimes some of the physical touch point that needs to be brought in to propose a proper good user experience to people. This is just another picture of the kiosk. This one is, well, there is a very interesting discussion around cash, especially going cashless. It's also true that I will bring a couple of counterexamples. That's, well, we are supporting very much the transition to e-payment at BPC for sure, but I will also bring example where it wasn't that easy to go cashless. One example here is Amazon in the US. Well, okay, US being a market far from being an emerging market, pretty developed. And the thing with Amazon is last year they rolled out Paycode. Have you heard about Paycode? No? Paycode is cash on delivery in the US, where you're ordering on Amazon and you're paying with cash when your goods are delivered. And you're not paying directly Amazon, you're paying at Western Union shops in cash. Well, that's pretty strange. Maybe that's an edge case. Well, it's not. It's ramping up. Japan, Brazil, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Well, cash is also at one point like ingrained in the habits of people. We are here in Germany. which is 50% of transactions still remain on cash in Germany. The reason for that is not because of people being unbanked. The reason for that is very culturally that in Germany there is a strong belief you can only spend within your own means. And by saying that, cash is a good artifact where you really know exactly what you're spending because you can grasp the money. In the Philippines, we were partnering with local banks actually, and well, we figured out that for operating and developing their ATM network. And then in Philippines, it was when we started working with this bank in Philippines, we observed 99% of transactions being in cash. It was 5 years ago, I think. And okay, so you're assuming that the vast majority of the population then is being unbanked. Well, not really. We drill deeper into the use cases, and what we find out is that 30% of the transactions are initiated with a card from the ATM to withdraw money and then paying in shops with cash. Why that? Power outage. ATMs are reliable enough and for power outage, so you can withdraw money, but the shops are not. And the e-payment terminals within the shops were not available. So cash was the only option where people can finalize the transaction. So true, when everything's working well, it's seamless and to leverage e-payment, but sometimes, and because of the infrastructure problem in this country, well, they were still relying on cash massively. Two other examples here where we took into account and developed a correspondent banking network or agent banking. One being with MTI, Indonesia. Cambodia. So with MTI, we released a network of shops where like 20,000 plus net. So it's not like it's a major agent network where people can perform customer due diligence, topping up, withdrawing cash, deposits, and they can perform that with agents. 100% digital bank, but with physical touchpoint because this is still necessary. With HKL, this is another one. It's the leader in the microfinancing in Indonesia. For them, we rolled out. It's a very interesting use case. We rolled out ATM and POS function to authenticate people with biometric, their fingerprints, and we are moving on with face recognition as well on this one. The point being here is that people were not in need of having an EMV card, but they were in need of banking, deposits, and also FX. Why FX in rural areas in this country? Well, because they are trading with Vietnam, with Indonesia, and the point being here, they are also in need some time to absorb the fluctuation of their currencies. And they are pretty savvy with regards to FX and conversion, but they were not having a card. So we bring and enable ATMs and POS with such dynamic conversion, currency conversion. If you recognize the background of this one, potentially it's because you were enjoying yourself in a nice accommodation. It's the Maldives. And you know the big problem with Maldives? Cash logistic is just a nightmare there. Why? Because you need to fly, to take a boat in order to go and fueling the capturing, collecting cash, and also filling the ATMs with the relevant cash. So we've been working with banks there to move them towards the payments track in order to reduce dependency on cash. Because in Maldives you can pay with the local currency, the rupiah, but you can also pay with USD. So you are having two currencies actually to manage from a logistic perspective. So we've been bringing in e-payment type of things where we are enabling attraction, and you can pay for your diving lessons directly there using e-payments. ZB Bank, you can see here, Zimbabwe. Well, maybe you're aware, but 10 years of crisis, and what's happened in Zimbabwe, it's very simple. Crisis, the deflation and the currency lost completely its value, so people were withdrawing way more cash from ATMs to buy their foods. Cash shortage, no more cash in the country available. But well, show must go on. You're living there, so you need still to buy things from the shops. So then we are to bring additional dynamic currency conversion in order to secure the savings and the deposit of people, the withdrawal as well, and to bring in digital capacity to avoid reliance on cash. And the final one is also a regulatory reason that is preventing to go fully digital. RTS SCA, pretty sure all of you, the 14th of September, were pretty busy with the implementation of the PSD2 RTS SCA, weren't you? The point being here is SMS is still in the limbo right now. SMS OTP, remember the SMS and the code you're getting to pay online? Well, there are countries where they are massively relying on this, France being one, for instance, and Germany, where from the opinion that, well, this is not a second factor authentication, so we should not consider this as a useful or valid authentication method. So the point being here, doesn't matter which opinion is the right one, the point being here, there is a local dimension to consider. There is also investment made by issuing banks that also needs to be considered. So sometimes tech adoption is also should be taken into consideration. The business model, also the local context. I'm running out of time. I can spend another hour with you running through very nice reason of digital transformation we've been running. If you're interested to hear more about all our stories around the world, you can find us at the booth P09. And we will share with you what we have brought to many of our customers around the world. Thank you for your time.
Sasha, thank you very much indeed.